Welcome to the Duck Dive. This is where we take a whole stack of sources, pull out those key insights, and, well, bring them straight to you.
Get right to the heart of it.
Exactly. And today we're doing more than just exploring a topic. We're actually going on a bit of a journey deep into the spiritual foundations of a movement that's really changed millions of lives. Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, many of you know the 12 steps, of course, but maybe fewer know about the, let's say, the rich spiritual soil they grew out of.
That's right.
So our mission today is to sort of uncover those foundational spiritual influences. We want to look at how these core ideas about higher consciousness, spiritual living, how they really clicked with AA's co-founders Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob.
Yeah, how they resonated so deeply.
And we're going to reflect a bit on how these, classical ideas about aligning with something bigger, maybe being, as Ralph Waldo Trine put it way back in 1897, in tune with the infinite, how that got woven right into the steps.
It's fascinating because it taps into these timeless universal principles.
It really does.
And what's really illuminating, I think, is we're trying to look beyond just what happened. We want to get at the why. Why were these specific spiritual concepts so incredibly crucial back then?
It's right.
They weren't just offering like a new technique. It was a whole new way of looking at recovery, a completely different paradigm that tapped into these universal truths. It wasn't tied to one specific time or belief system.
It was something desperately needed, wasn't it?
Utterly. Just wasn't there at the time. They were offering a solution that was completely missing.
And that's such a key distinction, because if you really understand these deep roots, well, you can get a much richer appreciation for the principles behind recovery, can't you?
Absolutely.
Whether you're, directly involved yourself, or maybe supporting someone who is, or maybe you're just curious about how profound personal change actually happens. Seeing the wisdom behind a program that's lasted almost a century now, well, it can offer some really valuable insights. It's about seeing the spiritual architecture, maybe?
Yeah, the underlying structure that makes such big changes possible personally and for communities.
Okay, so to really get a feel for the power of these spiritual principles, we first need to set the scene. We need a really vivid picture of the problem they're trying to solve.
Right. It's a starting point.
Exactly. Imagine the absolute unmanageability of life in active addiction. What people like Bill W. and so many others back then were going through, it was a life completely out of control. Just chaos and deep isolation.
Oh, chaos, yeah.
Our sources really paint a stark picture. It could be harrowing. There's this one quote from an early AA member that really captures that isolation, that desperation. He said something like, "I had been preached to, analyzed, cursed, and counseled."
Heard it all.
But no one had ever said, "I identify with what's going on with you. It happened to me, and this is what I did about it." That lack of connection, that feeling of being uniquely broken.
That's powerful. The loneliness must have been crushing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big book, the Alcoholics Anonymous text, it has these anecdotes. Stories that are chillingly familiar if you know anything about addiction.
Yeah, timeless struggles.
People being told by doctors, "Look, there's just no answer for you." Imagine hearing that. And being trapped in this endless agonizing cycle of trying to drink right, trying to control something that's fundamentally uncontrollable.
The promises to oneself, the rules.
Right. And despite the best intentions, blackouts were almost guaranteed every time. And the progression to daily drinking could be terrifyingly fast, sometimes just like 6 months.
It sneaks up on you, then grabs hold.
And the consequences just pile up, don't they? Dismantling lives, lost jobs, arrests, awful behavior, foul language, public scenes.
The whole downward spiral.
It wasn't just a bad habit. It was a complete system breakdown, utter despair. People would manage these brief, awful periods of sobriety, on the wagon.
Right knuckling it.
Yeah. Only to fall off with a terrible crash. Often drinking even more dangerously afterwards, trying to make up for lost time. The exhaustion, physical and mental, just left them broken.
Utterly broken. And that brokenness is key, isn't it?
It seems to be.
Because that's exactly where we find what people often call the pre-step, or maybe the step before the steps.
Okay.
It's that profound gut-level admission, conceding you're alcoholic, or at the very least admitting your life is just completely unmanageable. Total chaos.
Not just thinking it, but feeling it.
Exactly. It's not intellectual. It's visceral.
Yeah.
It's that rock-bottom realization. Things have to change. And that awareness starts to create a readiness, almost a desperate willingness.
Willingness for what?
To finally admit that we need help and to accept help when it is offered. It's the point where all the self-deception, all the excuses, they just collapse.
The breaking point.
Right. And then think about the psychology here. Active alcoholism often sets up this terrifying paradox, this double standard.
How so?
Well, the person feels deep down, if I don't get a drink, I'm going to die. The craving, the withdrawal, it feels like annihilation.
Okay.
But at the exact same time, they know, with this chilling certainty, if I keep drinking like this, it's going to kill me.
Wow. That's a terrible trap.
It's a dilemma unlike anything I had ever faced, as one person put it. Seems completely inescapable. And it's that psychological pressure cooker that eventually forces this total acceptance of my alcoholism.
Yeah.
With no reservations whatsoever.
No more loopholes.
None. And that acceptance, that total surrender, was absolutely essential for my recovery. All the mind games, the denial, the rationalizations they have to stop.
You run out of road.
Completely. The person who's been warned, who's made promises, tried everything, they finally run out of options, out of excuses, out of any hope in their own power. They're just spent on a treadmill to destruction.
Body, mind, spirit, just bankrupt.
Exactly. Total spiritual and emotional bankruptcy. The craving becomes this primal thing, overriding everything else. And that experience, that rock bottom, is what makes the idea of a spiritual solution, of maybe trying to get in tune with the infinite, even remotely conceivable.
So it's not about weakness or lack of willpower like people often think.
Not fundamentally, no. It's more like a physiological and psychological trap. Once alcohol changes the body's systems, the body essentially demands it. It's a complete loss of control, a forced submission.
An internal tyrant, yeah.
And it's precisely that desperation, that total collapse of self-reliance that creates the fertile ground, the opening for something new.
Without hitting that point, without admitting the current path is just fatal.
The spiritual journey can't even start. The mind has to first accept its own profound limits. It has to be willing to look beyond itself.
It's the point where willpower and intellect have just completely, demonstrably failed.
Utterly failed. You're left with no choice but to seek help, to acknowledge some power beyond your own exhausted self, whether you call it spiritual right away or just help from outside.
Right.
That complete bankruptcy, where everything that matters, relationships, dignity, hope, is gone or threatened.
Yeah.
That's often described as the act of providence, the thing that finally cracks the door open.
The catalyst.
Exactly. It creates this vacuum inside, and maybe only a spiritual solution, a connection to something bigger, something transcendent, can actually fill it. Without that deep internal shift, trying to recover is like, well, building on quicksand.
Okay, so with that backdrop of desperation clear, let's shift focus. Let's look at one of the most important and maybe sometimes overlooked influences on early AA, the Oxford Group.
Ah, yes, pivotal.
This movement, led by Frank Bookman, played a huge role in shaping many of the core spiritual practices and ideas that Bill W. and Dr. Bob later adapted and, wove into AA.
Absolutely. It's a really vital piece of the puzzle if you want to understand the spiritual DNA of recovery.
So what exactly was the Oxford Group? Well, it was this pretty dynamic, modern evangelical movement. It really flourished in the 1920s and early 30s. And what's fascinating is how its core ideas, while rooted in Christian principles, offered this surprisingly universal, very practical framework for personal change.
Practical is key.
Very practical. And it resonated deeply with people struggling with all sorts of issues, including addiction. Their moral backbone, the foundation for everything, was built on these four absolutes.
What were?
Absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute unselfishness, and absolute love. Now, these weren't just like lofty ideals up on a shelf.
Right.
They were presented as real, tangible guidelines for daily living, a moral compass for people feeling utterly lost.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about their practices?
One of the most maybe revolutionary practices was what they called sharing.
Sharing.
Yeah, essentially it was a form of open, honest confession. Members would share their sins, their deepest failings, their secrets with one another. In small groups, often.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It was powerful because it led to what they called a healthy discovery, the realization that your sins, your problems, weren't unique. You weren't some singular monster.
Ah, breaking the isolation again.
Exactly. It actively lifted the feeling of isolation and despair of self, replaced it with newfound freedom and exultant hope. You can't overstate how important that is for addiction.
Because addiction thrives in secrecy and shame.
Precisely. It feeds on shame. So bringing those hidden defects out into the light, sharing them, it starts to dissolve that suffocating burden.
Right.
And you can draw a straight line from that Oxford Group practice
To step 5 in AA.
directly to step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. It's more than just talking. It's a vital way to cultivate humility and find freedom from the bondage of self and the bondage of alcohol.
The relief must be incredible.
People describe it as beyond description, shedding that weight of secrets. It's the
Yeah.
moment of real spiritual liberation. It cracks the wall of denial and shame.
Okay, so sharing was about releasing that internal burden. What about, making things right for past actions?
Right, that brings us to another cornerstone. Restitution. Basically making amends.
Making amends.
It involved making complete atonement for wrongs. And they emphasized it required real courage to put ourselves right with God and man. It wasn't just saying sorry.
It meant action.
Genuine, often difficult action to fix the harm done. The sources mention the parable of prodigal son as an example that direct, honest atonement, no excuses.
And that connects to?
Steps 8 and 9 in AA, fundamentally. Step 8 is making a list of people harmed and becoming willing to make amends, getting honest, setting boundaries, even making amends to ourselves through recovery itself.
And step 9 is the action part.
Right, making direct amends. But it's nuanced. It requires good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. You had to be careful not to cause more harm in the process of trying to make amends.
Tricky sometimes.
Very. It's about discerning how to renew relationships now, not just apologize for the past. There's a story about a woman, Francesca, realizing so clearly how her drinking had hurt her family and feeling that spiritual need to repair those bonds. That's step 8 leading into 9.
It's amazing how these practical ideas from the Oxford group formed such a solid spiritual base for AA. What else? There was something called quiet time.
Yes, quiet time, absolutely central. It was basically meditation and seeking guidance. Practiced by groups and individuals, they sought the guidance of God for every detail of living, great or small.
Sounds very much like step 11.
The direct precursor, no question. Step 11 encourages seeking conscious contact with God through prayer and meditation. And that contact is very personal.
How so?
For some, it might be looking for signs of guidance in people, events, coincidences. For others, it's a more traditional spiritual path. The key is the daily discipline. Self-examination, meditation, prayer.
Building that foundation.
An unshakable foundation for life, as they put it. It's about learning to focus, to listen, to quiet the internal noise.
The mental chatter.
Right, quieting that turmoil to try and discern His will and guidance. It's a deliberate shift away from self-will towards a higher perspective, a guiding consciousness.
And Bill W. himself experienced these principles directly, didn't he, at a really low point?
Absolutely a crucial moment. He was hospitalized, desperate, really at the end of his rope. And his old drinking buddy, Ebby Thatcher, came to visit.
And Ebby had found sobriety through the Oxford group.
He had. And he didn't just preach. He laid out a practical, spiritual roadmap for Bill. He basically said, get honest with yourself. Do a self-survey. Talk it out with someone else. Make restitution. Try selfless giving.
The core practices.
Exactly. And crucially, ask whatever higher power there is, even if it is just as an experiment, to help you find the grace to be released from alcoholism. That was the actionable message.
Just try it as an experiment.
Yeah. That practical, experiential approach was key. It clicked for Bill, pulled him back from the brink, and really set everything in motion. It's where these universal spiritual principles became a concrete path to potentially getting in tune with the infinite.
And we should also mention people like Anne and Henrietta, right? And the meetings in Akron.
Oh, definitely. They played crucial roles in nurturing that spiritual dimension for Bill and Dr. Bob. And those early Oxford group meetings, like at the Williams home in Akron, were really the crucibles where these seeds were sown and started to grow into what became AA's program.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more because this feels like the absolute core of it all. These practices, sharing, amends, quiet time, they weren't just like new rules to follow.
No, not rituals for their own sake.
They were pathways, weren't they? Pathways to a really fundamental shift in how you see things, a connection to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
This is where that idea of being in tune with the infinite, like Trine talked about, really seems to fit. Finding that harmony with some unseen order, some spiritual reality beyond just me, my ego.
Right. And that raises the big question. What is something larger?
Yeah.
For AA, it really centers on the concept of a higher power and a shift towards what you could call God consciousness.
No, God consciousness, that doesn't necessarily mean traditional religion, does it?
Not at all. It's much broader. It represents an expanded awareness, maybe an intuitive sense of a spiritual presence, a guiding principle, a universal force,
Yeah.
whatever works for the individual. It's moving beyond a purely self-centered view of the world.
Okay.
AA introduced this really crucial insight, sometimes called the not-godness insight.
Not godness. Explain that.
Well, it explains how AA shifted the alcoholic's focus away from the finite, often destructive material things like alcohol towards the infinite, the spiritual. The idea is that the alcoholic's deep inner striving was actually for the infinite, for transcendence.
A spiritual thirst, almost.
Exactly, a thirst that could never be satisfied by purely material things like booze. So this not-godness insight broke the obsession with the finite, the readily available alcohol.
And redirected that energy.
Ingeniously redirected it towards seeking the quality of the spiritual in his life. See, the material is finite. You always want more. But the spiritual is qualitative. It offers genuine, lasting satisfaction, real fulfillment.
That makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of William James.
Absolutely. Philosopher William James, his observation fits perfectly here. He said that religion, basically, consists of the belief that there is an unseen order and that our supreme good lies in harmoniously adjusting ourselves thereto.
Harmoniously adjusting.
And James noted that this belief, this adjustment, yields a superior denomination of happiness and a steadfastness of soul.
So what does that harmonious adjustment look like in practice? How do you do that?
It comes down to letting go of willfulness and embracing willingness.
Willfulness versus willingness.
Willfulness is that relentless drive to control everything, right? To gain power over people and situations, bend the world to my desires. It's the ego trying to run the whole show, and it's exhausting.
Constantly fighting reality.
Totally. Willingness, on the other hand, is more like saying yes to life.
Yeah.
It's aligning your inner self, the part connected to spirit, with the natural flow, moving from constant struggle to acceptance, receptivity.
It's not passive, though.
No, it's an active choice, choosing harmony over conflict.
So it's really about shifting away from that ego-driven, self-centered way of being, constantly trying to manipulate things,
Exact.
towards something guided by a higher purpose. Admitting our own will is limited and often, frankly, wrong.
That's the absolute core of it. The fundamental problem identified in alcoholism is self-centeredness. The sources call it a serious problem.
The ego running riot.
Right. This ego-centered personality is always blaming others, denying the real reasons for unhappiness, and tragically seeing alcohol as an ally, a shelter from the storm inside and out.
Trapped in its own bubble.
Completely disconnected. Augustine, in his Confessions, put it so powerfully. He said something like, "By my swelling pride I was separated from thee. My bloated cheeks blinded my eyes." He couldn't find God, couldn't even find his true self, because he'd inflated his ego so much.
Profound spiritual isolation caused by ego.
Yes. And that's why surrender becomes the paradoxical first step toward connection, the gateway to aligning with that higher consciousness.
Step one.
Step one. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And the text notes this first step makes all of our natural instincts cry out against accepting this idea.
Everything in you fights it.
And because it means giving up the illusion of control, the very thing the ego clings to. But this is the moment of real humility, recognizing the self-reliant strategy has utterly failed.
The belief that I can run the whole show.
Yeah. But humility, paradoxically, is the main key to sobriety. And it has to be sincere. The sources say nothing constructive has ever been accomplished with men who are dragged or pushed.
It has to come from within.
The sincere desire to be helped on the part of the alcoholic himself. It's that internal decision to finally lay down the weapons, accept your limits, and reach beyond yourself to another person, a group, a higher power.
That moment of surrender isn't defeat then.
I know. It's the spiritual opening, the crack where the light gets in, the moment the possibility of being in tune with the infinite finally seems real, shifting from fighting reality to embracing it.
Okay, let's really get into this now. We've talked about the universal spiritual ideas, the desperation that primes people for change, the influence of the Oxford group.
Building blocks.
Exactly. So how do these powerful, sometimes kind of abstract ideas actually get translated into the practical step-by-step framework of the 12 steps?
Yeah.
How do they become a real roadmap for spiritual living, for that alignment we're talking about?
This is where the genius of the steps really shines. They take these big spiritual concepts and make them actionable, things you can actually do day by day. It's a program for inner transformation.
So let's walk through some key ones, starting with step one.
Okay, step one, admitting powerlessness over alcohol, that life is unmanageable. Now, this isn't just passively giving up. It's an active, courageous admission based in reality and truth.
Facing the facts, however harsh.
Right. One reflection calls it a dilemma, unlike anything I had ever faced, but a necessary one. It's that moment of brutal self-honesty. My own willpower has completely failed here.
And spiritual.
Spiritually, it's the foundation. The ego has to surrender its illusion of control. That creates the space, the void, for something greater to come in. You acknowledge your spiritual bankruptcy. Self-will is a dead end.
It's not weakness, it's facing reality, a prerequisite.
Exactly, which leads to step 2. This offers the spiritual gift of hope, the idea that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Could. The possibility.
That's key. For many, this is radical. It challenges years of self-reliance, maybe cynicism, and the path to sanity. Realizing you had only to stop fighting and practice the rest of AA's program as enthusiastically as I could.
Stop fighting it.
Yes. Now, the word sanity can rub people the wrong way initially, implying they've led false lives or been irrational. But fundamentally, it's about accepting reality and just being open-minded to spiritual restoration.
You don't have to fully believe yet.
No, just open the door to the possibility that a higher power exists and can help. It's that first glimmer of light, moving from despair to just tentative hope.
Okay, then step 3.
Step 3 is huge. It's the decision point. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
The willingness part again.
Deeply. It's the chance to focus not on the outer self, the one driven by willfulness that leads to defiance, but on the inner self, the part connected to spirit.
And that connection guides us.
It guides us to use our will in harmony with life, not against it. It's about embracing God's will, especially when our own best intentions go wrong, when our desires are selfish, when our knowledge is limited, which is often.
Yeah. Brand had a good way of describing this shift, didn't he?
He did. He talked about life in addiction being this unexamined matrix, where every uncomfortable feeling had an instant automatic fix. Lonely, have sex, sad, get drunk, bored, eat cake.
The instant gratification cycle.
Right. But in recovery, he learned to pause, to better commune with my feelings, and crucially, when agitated or confused, to ask for help.
That pause is step 3 in action.
Exactly. That conscious shift from immediate self-gratification to seeking guidance, deciding to align your will with something larger, more benevolent. Choosing willingness over willfulness. It creates real inner freedom.
Okay, so you make that decision. Then comes the really hard look inwards, right? Steps 4 and 5.
Right, they go hand in hand.
Right.
Step 4 is making a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. This isn't just a quick mental check. It's intensive, rigorous.
Paying attention to yourself, maybe for the first time in a long
The
time.
one person said, yeah, it's a deep dive into your character actions, sure, but also motivations, resentments, fears, how you've behaved in relationships.
Spiritually, what's happening there?
It's radical self-honesty, shining a light into those dark corners where resentments and fears fester, blocking spiritual growth. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about systematically finding the inner obstacles.
Seeing yourself clearly, warts and all, so healing can start.
Precisely. And then step 5 is sharing that raw personal inventory with God, with yourself, and critically with another human being.
Why is sharing with another person so important?
It breaks that terrible isolation. It lifts the heavy burden of guilt and shame carried in secret. It allows for humility by dismantling the denial and secrecy addiction thrives on.
Getting rid of the phony self.
Yeah, putting that facade, the ego's shield, to rest. Speaking your deepest defects aloud to someone else brings profound relief, often described as a rebirth. You find out your unique flaws are actually part of the human condition. It lifts despair and builds connection through vulnerability.
So identifying defects isn't enough. You have to address them. Steps 6 and 7.
Exactly. Steps 6 and 7 tackle removing these character defects. And there's a subtle but crucial difference. Step 6 is becoming entirely ready to have God remove them all.
Ready, not just willing.
Ready implies a deeper level of acceptance. Initially, people might balk, as the book says. You might secretly like some of your defects, find them useful or comfortable in a weird way.
Holding on to them.
Right. The key here isn't perfection, but genuine willingness to change, to quit our stubborn, rebellious hanging on to them. Then step 7 is humbly asking God to remove these shortcomings. Acknowledging your own willpower isn't enough.
Humility again.
Defined here as a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. It's honest self-assessment plus willingness to change. A spiritual surrender allowing a higher power to transform you in ways you can't manage alone. It fosters ongoing growth.
Okay, then the focus shifts outward. Steps 8 and 9.
Yes, turning outward to repair damage. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed. and became willing to make amends to them all. Understanding how your behavior affected others, taking responsibility.
And becoming willing first.
That willingness is key. Then step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. It's not just apologies. Often it involves restitution, concrete action to repair harm.
Renewing relationships in the present.
Exactly. Not just dwelling on guilt, but needing that careful judgment, timing, courage, prudence, ensuring the amends don't cause more harm.
Spiritually, what does making amends achieve?
It clears the wreckage of the past, frees you from the chains of guilt and remorse, opens the way for honest relationships with others and with your higher power. It's like repairing the spiritual order that was disrupted.
These sound like ongoing things, not just one-off tasks.
Absolutely critical point. The spiritual journey is continuous. Step 10 makes that explicit. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
Daily maintenance.
It's ongoing observation and reflection. Recognizing when you're out of balance, hurting yourself or others. A daily check-in to stop resentments, worries, fears from building up again and pushing you back to old ways.
Pain becomes a signal.
A friend, as one reading puts it. An emotional or spiritual signal that something's off balance, prompting you to use the steps for correction. Keeps you accountable and spiritually awake.
And step 11 deepens that daily practice.
Yes, step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Improving conscious contact.
It's a daily discipline. Self-examination, meditation, prayer, leading to that unshakable foundation. It's about focusing and listening for guidance, quieting the mind.
What's the ultimate goal there?
A union between your purposes in life and the purposes of the divine principle directing the universe, as one source beautifully puts it. A oneness of purpose, harmony, truly getting in tune with the infinite. It's nurturing that connection daily, not just in crises.
And finally, step 12.
Step 12 is the result and the continuation. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Giving it away to keep it.
That's the essence. The sources say, no satisfaction has been deeper and no joy greater than in a 12-step job well done. Witnessing lives change, families heal, people awaken to the presence of a loving God.
It's not about preaching, though.
No, the intention is simply to offer what we have to the person who is still suffering. Sharing your own experience, strength, hope, listening. It's the culmination, transforming yourself, then reaching out to help others heal, a ripple effect. It's living out these principles in service, the active demonstration of being spiritually aligned.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting, I think. Once these deep spiritual principles started working, transforming lives, how did AA manage to hold on to that spiritual focus? How did it maintain unity and integrity as it grew into this huge worldwide thing?
Yeah, how did it avoid the pitfalls?
Exactly. Navigating the public eye, avoiding ego traps, internal fights, things that often mess up successful movements.
It's a great question. How does a spiritual movement sustain itself without getting watered down or corrupted? AA developed this set of really unique spiritual safeguards, traditions they call them, a kind of spiritual constitution.
Born from experience, not theory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hard-won experience. And one of the most vital is anonymity.
Right, keeping identities private at the public level.
And the tradition puts it strongly. 100% personal anonymity before the public is just as vital to the life of AA as 100% sobriety is to the life of each and every member. It's not about shame. It's the prudent voice of long experience.
What does it achieve, spiritually speaking?
Several things. First, it constantly reminds everyone to place principles before personalities. The message is more important than the messenger. It keeps egos in check.
Prevents guruism.
Exactly. Second, it prevents self-promotion. And maybe most crucially, protects AA if a well-known member relapses. The program isn't identified with one fallible person.
Were there early problems with this?
Oh, yes. The book Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age talks about it. Early members getting into politics, using the AA name, lobbying, telling judges who should go to AA or jail. Even money issues tied to breaking anonymity.
Wow, that could have derailed everything.
Easily. These things threatened the core purpose. So anonymity became this essential spiritual safeguard. It mandates humility.
And that focus on principles seems linked to the idea of attraction rather than promotion.
Directly linked. That's another bedrock tradition.
Yeah.
AA's public relations policy is explicitly based on attraction rather than promotion.
Meaning?
meaning people are drawn in because they see something about sustained sobriety, serenity, a better way of life, not because they're being aggressively sold the program.
Yeah.
AA doesn't advertise, it demonstrates.
By example.
Exactly. It offers our own story and the ability to empathize and listen. That's far more powerful, more authentic, more spiritually resonant than any slick campaign.
The growth proves it worked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Much of the early growth came via newspaper articles, radio, films, people telling their stories, attracting others. It's an invitation, not a demand. Come see if this way of aligning with something higher works for you.
That feels more respectful, more spiritual somehow. What about money? That often causes issues.
Right, which leads to the tradition of self-support and unity, the first tradition. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Unity is paramount.
And self-support is part of that.
Yes. Every AA group should be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Interestingly, this advice came from outside John D. Rockefeller Jr.
Really?
Yeah. He observed early AA and advised against taking outside money, calling financial independence a gift far more valuable than money.
Why was outside money seen as such a threat?
The fear was practical and profound. If AA got rich from donations, outside trustees or funders might start calling the shots, inventing pet projects, diverting AA from its one primary purpose, helping the alcoholic who still suffers.
Mission creep. Loss of focus.
Exactly. AA's unity is rooted in that singleness of purpose. Financial independence keeps AA accountable only to its members and its core spiritual mission, protects the integrity. It also prevents internal squabbles over money and power.
It seems like all these traditions are designed to protect the spiritual core of the program.
They absolutely are. Safeguards against ego, division, and dilution.
And maybe the most spiritually inclusive safeguard is the flexible approach to higher power.
Oh, definitely. This is remarkably wise. The inclusivity of higher power makes AA accessible to almost anyone. They recognized early on that insisting on a specific concept of God would be a huge barrier for many agnostics, atheists, people hurt by past religious experiences.
So they left it open.
Wide open, God as we understood him. Or you can even make AA itself your higher power, the group, the principles. That can be the power greater than yourself initially.
So people could start where they were.
Exactly. Many skeptical members crossed the threshold just this way. They found power in the group, the fellowship, the steps. And often, as their lives changed, their faith broadened and deepened. Many eventually came to believe in a higher power beyond the group itself.
The focus isn't theology, it's alignment.
Precisely. Alignment with some spiritual principle, some unseen order, whatever that means for you. It's about finding serenity now, accepting reality as it is, not fighting how it should be. That radical open-mindedness, that inclusivity, it lets anyone willing to try connect and grow. It truly embodies the universal nature of getting in tune with the infinite without demanding one single definition. Hashtag, tag, outro.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. We've really gone back to the source, haven't we? Unpacking the spiritual wellsprings of AA.
Yeah, connecting the dots.
Connecting the desperation, the historical influences like the Oxford group, the personal experiences, all leading to this coherent, transformative path. It's clear AA's success isn't accidental.
Not at all. It's built on these deep, timeless truths.
It really feels like the enduring power comes from those universal spiritual principles we've talked about. Honesty, humility, willingness, that tough self-reflection, making things right, prayer, meditation, service.
All converging, right? Not just for stopping drinking, but leading towards that profound alignment with a higher consciousness, that state of being truly in tune with the infinite.
Changing lives from chaos to, well, maybe not perfect peace, but serenity. From isolation to real connection.
And it's lived experience. As the sources say, simply, it works, but I have to live it. It's not just theory.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Maybe consider that the ultimate aim here isn't just fixing a problem like addiction, but it's about a profound whole-person transformation.
Finding what's already inside you.
Right. One source suggests feeling good is your birthright. No magic potion is needed. Just a willing commitment to trust, appreciate, and embrace joy. It's already there.
But accessing it often means going through discomfort.
Yeah, learning to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Seeing challenges as a rite of passage into selfhood, where you find comfort in your own skin, maybe connecting with that divine spark within. It's like you're literally rewiring your brain, choosing new paths over old destructive habits.
Choosing to go against the grain.
Exactly. So we encourage you to think about how these timeless spiritual principles, honesty, willingness, connection to something larger, might apply in your own life.
Not just for addiction, but for seeking a more harmonious, more purposeful existence generally.
How could a bit more honesty or willingness or a conscious effort to connect, how might that change your daily experience? How could you become more in tune with the infinite in your own way?
It's definitely a question worth exploring.